President Buhari orders accountants general (MDAs) to publish financial spending of the federal government on a daily basis. 3 persons die in separate court clashes in Lagos. In international news, Russia, Ukraine leaders agree on ceasefire. And in sport, Senegal becomes first African country to host.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. 3 persons have been killed in separate court clashes in Ikorodu and Daja areas of Lagos last Thursday. One Ikorodu resident says she heard a loud noise just before her bedtime. She said by morning there was a deceased young man killed by a rival gang. Another suspected cult member was hacked to death with machetes at Ofin in Ikorodu. One cultist was also shot allegedly by members of a rival group at Langbasa in Aja on Saturday. He was reported to have died in the hospital 2 days later. Police say no one has claimed his corpse. The federal government has launched the Open Treasury portal, which it says would give Nigerians access to information on the flow of monies in and out of government coffers. The government has mandated all ministries, departments and agencies to publish daily reports of payments that are more than 5 million naira. They are also to publish monthly budget performance and other official financial dealings. Minister of State for Niger Delta, Tayo Alasho Adura, who represented the president, gave the directives at the official launch of the Financial Transparency Policy and Implementation Guidelines. Accountant General of the Federation has also been directed to publish monthly fiscal accounts within 2 weeks after the end of the month. A quarterly consolidated unaudited financial statements of the federal government within a month of the end of the quarter with an annual general purpose financial report. Nigerians can go to www.opentreasury.gov.ng to view the information. President Buhari emphasized the publications must be in line with international public sector accounting standards. A coalition of civil society organizations that advised the Directorate of State Security and other security agencies not to compromise internal security of the country in the face of cheap blackmail. The coalition alleges the co-convener of #RevolutionNow protest, Omoyele Sowore, and his cohort who masterminded the drama witnessed at the premises of the Federal High Court in Abuja to embarrass Nigeria before the international community. Convener of the Guidance for Democracy Initiative, Prince Danisi Momo, who spoke on behalf of the coalition, says, quote, "There is no place for revolution in the Nigerian constitution. The ballot box is the only way for transition," end quote. Momo says the drama was plotted to mislead the media and misinform Nigerians. The coalition further asked the judiciary to uphold only the constitution and jettison pressure from any political and tribal sentiments. Justice OConnor of the Federal High Court has dismissed the application for bail variation on Monday. The application was filed by James Nolan. The judge says it was lacking in merit. He adjourned the case till Tuesday for continuation of trial after he had taken the prosecution and defense counsel arguments. The judge wondered why Nolan could not respond to the serious allegation leveled against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, that he forged his resident permit and that if granted bail, he might jump bail. Justice Abang regretted a November judgment which granted Nolan bail in the sum of 500 million naira. The EFCC arraigned in October Nolan and Adam Quinn over the alleged complicity in the $9.6 billion judgment against Nigeria. Quinn is now at large. The arraignment of the 2 British nationals comes weeks after 2 directors of process and industrial development were convicted over the deal. The immediate past executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, Today Fowler, said on Monday a second term as chairman of the service can never be automatic. He thanked President Buhari for giving him a platform to serve the country as he handed over to the coordinating director, Domestic Taxes Group, Abiodun Aino. President Muhammadu Buhari nominated Mohammed Nami yesterday as Fowler's replacement. More than 600 workers at the Ekiti State University in Ado-Ekiti are protesting against their disengagement by the institution's governing council. The sacked workers were let go over alleged irregular appointments, discrepancies in certificates, failure to possess requisite certificates from the primary level, and falsification of age, among other offences. The protesting workers were said to have disrupted activities in the university. They were acting under the Joint Action Committee, comprising the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, the Non-Academic Staff Unions of Education and Allied Institutions, and the National Association of Academic Technologists. They and leaders of other labor unions say the basis of their termination was flimsy. Vice Chancellor Professor Edward Olanikwekun has advised leaders of the labor unions to maintain a reasonable level of decorum while expressing their grievances. Coming up, African stories. Qatar Airways invest in Rwanda new airports. And later, international news. Russia, Ukraine agree on ceasefire.
Today, night don't reach for me to settle blessing. Blessing for you. When this girl first got this my shop called network. Now so on top of NTF 4G phone. Now this girl could press. I provoke. I paranoid short to reach what time, eh? The ambulance make her tell her to make she mash her act. Come up from my shop. And later I come realize say this girl go snap am. Put her for inside internet. They take her they do adverts. Now I make customers that they come with my shop. Blessing, I want make you help me manage my shop number 2.
Madam, but I think Nami and Blessing start work the same time.
Now you and Blessing start work the same time. Blessing, you better start on the T-shirt for top of your 4G MTN phone.
Business makes sense on top super fast and reliable MTN 4G. Join MTN, make you enjoy double data.
In a Twitter post on Monday, Rwanda Development Board has announced that Qatar national carrier Qatar Airways has signed an agreement to take a 60% stake in a new $1.5 billion international airport in the country. The board says the first phase of construction would provide facilities for 7 million passengers a year in the Bugesera district, a few kilometers southeast of the capital, Kigali. A second phase is expected to be completed by 2032 with double capacity to 14 million passengers a year. The country's infrastructure minister, Clava Gatete, told a news conference that a construction company was still being sought to build the airport and that once work starts, the first phase would take 5 years to complete. The plans for the new airport are a modification of those drawn up in 2017 for a smaller facility with a maximum capacity of 4.5 million passengers a year in the same location. Gatete said Qatar Airways investments would help in building the larger airports. South Africa has come a long way in its history. The world knows of its struggles during apartheid all the way to independence in 1994. Now, an ongoing exhibition tells the story of the country's long journey to democracy. And Travis Andrews has the story.
It started with Ashomato and ended with Nelson Mandela. The Long Walk to Freedom is a 350-year journey that celebrates the heroes of South Africa's liberation struggle. The installation tells the story of those who fought to end the oppressive system of colonialism and then apartheid, which has ultimately led to the South Africa of today.
It being an outdoor exhibition, the whole essence of people on a journey to liberation. And people know that each statue symbolizes thousands of others who we are not able to portray. So Nelson Mandela symbolizes his generation. Same with Makoma, the warrior king, symbolizes that generation. So it's a beautiful story. You come here and you're surrounded by these human rights activists.
Famous figures include the Mandela and Tambo families, as well as the earliest freedom fighters. Even Fidel Castro makes an appearance.
We've got about 100 statues for now, and our selection, our criteria that we use, it's people who have passed on and who also contributed to our liberation struggle of South Africa, irrespective of where they come from, the country, it doesn't matter.
The contribution women played in the country's 300-year path to liberation are also honored. It's easy to see why this exhibition stirs up such a lot of emotion. Not only are they lifelike, but some of the actual clothes were used and bronze to be part of each individual installation. And 500 of these bronze statues are in the pipeline, including other world figures that played an important role in South Africa's history.
One of the people we'll be putting into this procession in the future is Chairman Mao Zedong. And others from China who contributed to our struggle for democracy. They were fellow freedom fighters. They fought with us. They gave us arms. They gave us boots for our troops. They gave us educational and other assistance. So we are brothers and sisters in terms of the struggle that was fought.
But although the exhibition has already been lauded as an installation that is not only immersive and emotive, but sets a powerful tone of self-reflection for anyone who values the true cost of attaining a free and democratic society.
Africa is known to be blessed with millions of foods, and countries on the continent produce hundreds of different culinary offerings. And Senegal has just hosted the first ever Africa gastronomic competition in Dakar, from where we bring you this report.
Chefs showed up with ready equipment, their mission to celebrate African know-how in gastronomy and culinary art.
The situation of African gastronomy today requires a real diagnosis. African gastronomy is at the level where it must be put back to the international standard. We must bring vision, intelligence to African gastronomy. We want African gastronomy to be at the side of the great international gastronomy.
The forum also had a taste test session where chefs cooked typical African dishes while upholding international standards.
As a doctor, I think that African gastronomy, through the rich and diverse, is perfectly balanced. When you go from Mali to Senegal, all dishes contain everything the body needs. I think this forum is very interesting as the chefs are reviving the African culture through gastronomy.
The professionals also urged Africans to go back to consuming locally grown foods.
Some imported products have quality control gaps from how they are grown to processing and storage. I urge all Africans to consume local products because they are products that we control very well.
I am very pleased to have been invited because it is great that we are linking the ancestral recipes of Africa with their dietetics. I think Africa is making all the riches at the level of local available foods, so I will always advise to consume raw products rather than taking industrialized products.
The winner received $1,600, the first runner-up received $1,100, and the one in third place received just over $500.
We are very proud to win this competition. We worked with African raw materials to showcase these products. The jury had asked us for creativity and we did it. For my colleagues and I, our dream is to become great cooks to represent Africa worldwide.
This was the first edition of the Gourmet Africa competition, which seeks to bring together chefs with over 20 years' experience from 22 African countries. The organizers aim to open a Pan-African school to train future leaders of gastronomy to spread the tastes of Africa worldwide.
When we return, international news. Russia, Ukraine agree on ceasefire. And later, sport. Senegal becomes first African country to host Youth Olympics. French airport workers, teachers and others joined nationwide strikes on Tuesday as unions stepped up pressure on the government to scrap changes to the national retirement system. Police ordered shops and restaurants closed in many parts of Paris for fear of violence springing up on the fringes of what government opponents hope is another mass march in the afternoon. At this stage, 100,000 persons demonstrated around France when the strike movement kicked off last Thursday. Protests were also ongoing on Tuesday in other cities as the strike pushes on into a sixth straight day. Unions fear President Emmanuel Macron's retirement reform will force people to work longer for smaller pensions. Only about a fifth of French trains ran normally on Tuesday, and tourists were frustrated at empty train stations and cancelled trains. Most Paris subways were grounded. Overall, the number of striking workers is lower than last week, but travelers' patience is wearing thin as commuters struggle to squeeze on scarce regional trains to get to work. Air France, the national carrier, said the strike will ground more than a quarter of its domestic traffic on Tuesday. Russian and Ukrainian leaders have agreed to a ceasefire and to swap prisoners by the end of the year. This agreement was reached during a four-way meeting in Paris on Monday involving France and Germany. The four heads of state said they had made progress and that just talking was a key step forward. They are to meet again in 4 months. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was confident the ceasefire would take place this month. In a late-night press conference, Zelensky outlined both steps forward and progress still to be made. This is the first meeting between Zelensky and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin since the Ukrainian president took office earlier this year. It's the first such four-way meeting, a summit since 2016. Putin confirmed that there was a possible thaw between Russia and Ukraine. He said there was progress in most issues. These talks are an effort to resolve the ongoing conflict between the two countries, conflicts that have claimed more than 13,000 lives since 2014. Both sides have since accused each other of failing to honor a 2015 peace agreement. But President Zelensky, a political newcomer, has made ending the conflict a priority. Britain's election are coming up on Thursday, and political leaders are at a frenzy pushing for votes ahead of the exercise. The elections have been dominated by the single issue of Brexit and what would be the future relationship between Britain and the European Union. Britain's political leaders are making a final push for votes ahead of Thursday's general election, which has been dominated by the issue of Britain's exit from the European Union. If the Conservatives win on Thursday, they plan to leave the European Union on January the 31st, 2020, under the withdrawal agreements negotiated with Brussels. Although the Conservatives want to get Brexit done, Britain has not yet negotiated its future relationship with the EU. That is expected to take years. Opposition Labour Party has been harping on other issues like the health service. It has not found a resonating message for its stance on Brexit, a situation analysts believe could hurt them at the polls. The party says it would renegotiate a better Brexit deal if it wins. Opposition Labour Party has tried to focus on other issues like the health service and has sometimes struggled to communicate its stance on Brexit, something that could cost them at the ballot box. The party promises to renegotiate a better Brexit deal, then hold another referendum. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats say they would cancel Brexit altogether. They could become very key in a coalition if no party wins the majority on Thursday. A good news for journalists for a change. The International Federation of Journalists said on Monday far fewer journalists are being killed this year compared to the last. But it warned that part of the reason may be that media workers are going to the most dangerous areas in fewer numbers. The IFJ said 49 journalists have been killed so far this year, down from 95 overall last year. The group says even if it is good that journalists show more caution, it also means that the public is less informed about some of the worst war and human rights claims. IFJ General Secretary Anthony Belanga says the lack of security that has led to loss of lives among journalists and media workers in several conflict zones in recent years has deterred many journalists from covering these events from the field. He said this has resulted in people being less informed about matters of public interest. Up next, sport. Senegal becomes first African country to host Youth Olympics. Please stay with us. A six-man committee headed by Afolabi Olawale has been set up on Monday to look into the crisis rocking the Athletics Federation of Nigeria. The committee is to evaluate the Puma sponsorship's terms of engagement, possible payments made, and equipment delivered to AFN. It is expected to also report or submit its report in 2 weeks. The Olympics Youth Games are finally coming to Africa for the first time in 2022, and Senegal will be the first African nation to break the ice. Senegal beat proposers from Botswana, Nigeria and Tunisia to win the hosting right. Thousands of 15 to 18-year-old athletes from more than 200 countries usually participate in the Summer Games, competing in more than 40 sporting events as diverse as badminton, boxing, fencing, table tennis, rugby and weightlifting. It is not surprising that Senegal was chosen as the host. The country has been proactive in turning to a new development path designed to transform its economy, improve living conditions and overhaul its infrastructure.